So I was in the place with the yellow tag the other day looking for some Blu-rays when I came across these Star Wars 3D Deco lights, which you normally find online for about $20 or $30. However, this time they were on clearance for $11.99 and thought, as a fan, I should probably get a few of them, so I did. However, taking a closer look at especially the Death Star, I realized that I should probably spruce it up a little bit. I went online and found a couple of videos which inspired me to then create a very, very complicated method of making it just ever so slightly cooler, and I figured I would post it online since I took pictures of it all and show you guys how I did it. You have the Death Star, and when you flip it over, there are 10 Phillips screws on the back. You take them apart and you get these two panels. Affixed to the back panel are the 4 LED lights that make up the lighting system. In all reality, it puts out a decent amount of light and even projects a celestial pattern inside the room. However, I Tim Allen'd the shit out of it, but we'll get to that later. On the inside, there are Phillips head screws that hold the two halves together, plus the green plastic piece for the inside of the weapon. Removing these screws is just as easy, and taking it apart is finished. Now we've got the two halves that we're looking for. I chose these 3 types of paints, but you can choose whatever the hell you want. Some may choose to go for a lighter color in the end. You'll see what I mean. I took it outside and began painting. I'm not an expert, so I'll spare you on the details. I ended up putting 3 separate coats on, but as you can see, it's already a massive improvement. Here's a closer look at the surface. You can see it's taken away a lot of that stupid molded plastic shine. Next up, Frogtape. I began by laying strips around the quarter sphere. On this one I started on the center, but on the second piece I realized that if you start on one edge and work your way to the other while removing excess tape, it makes it a lot easier to cut with the X-Acto knife in our next step. Either way, in the end it should look something like this, or whatever. For this next step I used an X-Acto knife, but I'm sure a prison shank would work just as well. This model has raised panels, so it makes the edges easier to find under tape. Using my fingernails, I sawed out and imprinted the edges and then cut them with the X-Acto knife. That's at least one panel down. After completing the process on the other side, the two halves look like this. As you can see, it's not perfect, but I think it'll get the job done. So I took it outside and blasted it with another few coats of this metallic paint. I figured this would give the panels a good base coat for the paint to come. I think I ended up shooting this about 3 times as well, and ended up with a nice even finish on both sides. To give it a little flair, I ended up taking my X-Acto knife, found some cell phone screen repair tape I had lying around, managed to cut it in half, and then I placed the little strips in random areas all across the quarter spheres. This would preserve the metallic paint to add more detail to the panels in the end. For the final coat on the panels, I chose a paint plus primer that wasn't going to leave them glossy. I evenly dusted the model a couple more times, making sure to leave a hint of silver behind. You can really see it come through here. Here's what it ended up looking like after the final coat, and there's those little strips that I put on it earlier. Clearly there's a difference between the factory plastic color and what I've chosen to paint it. The next step was to remove all the tape. It's easier to start from the edges. This was another tedious process, so I'll speed it up. So this is the end result, which I was okay with. A closer look reveals some of those strips that I put it in earlier. You can even kind of see that silver base coat coming out from behind those panels. Taking these little sponges and some leftover spray paint, I textured the dish around the weapon to give it a more battled look. In the end, I ended up with this, which I think is a lot better than the original when you put them next to each other. And there you have it, an incredibly complex method to making a $12 children's toy ever so slightly cooler. Now I think it looks decent, bearing in mind that it is a nightlight, and its primary purpose is to be used in a situation where you won't see any of the detail that I just put in it. Oh well. Oh, and remember that upgrade I was talking about earlier? There it is. And there's the power that's required to run it. I took one of those angel eye LEDs that's meant for car headlights and managed to fit it perfectly around the battery box. I used a little bit of hot glue to secure it in place and shoved the wires out back. I'm not an electrical engineer by any means, so if somebody figured out how to wire this into the system while using the factory switch on the model, please let me know. And again, there you have it, the finished piece, with all that glory and detail. Well, I'm not sure why you stuck around this long, because I'm not even going to put it on the wall. In fact, I'm going to put it back in the box. That's right.